Amazon, Exploiting Textbook Trade-ins with Python by Brandon Lorenz. Brandon is a former Marine who works at Victoria's Secret now and does Python by night. He's an active member of the local Python community here and a good friend. So without further ado, I introduce Brandon Lorenz.
Thank you, Eric. Well, thank you. So a show of hands, who's first time here at PyOhio? Many of you. This is the best free conference that you can attend. I first came here in 2011 and madly fell in love with it. And now 2 years later, here I am speaking on arbitrage on Amazon. And this is a talk about a process that I did in 2011 about how I was able to kind of game Amazon and really drive my kids' Christmas. So that's why we're here. Well, my kids had a wonderful Christmas, and this is just a small sampling of what they got from Amazon. And this is the way they got it. I'm not an Amazon merchant. I didn't have to wait for somebody to buy and purchase all these. What I did was I executed pretty much a contract that Amazon had. If you wanted to trade in a book that you had, they would give you a gift card. So, hi friends, I'm Brandon Lorenz. I've been in Python for about 2 years now. I've been in Django, which is where my heart and soul is, since 1.3. Kind of late to the community and very sad about that. And I've been developing on the web since about 96. First with server-side includes, and then Perl scripts, and then PHP. And I was in PHP up until I got to Python. I'm at blorenz on Twitter. And you should follow me because when I tweet, it's pretty much going to be relevant to Python or the Python community. So let's take the first steps. Whenever we're trying to go into a system such as Amazon, we got to first know our target. We have to understand the process that's involved. And essentially, we need to feel the pain that if we weren't going to do this with the aid of a machine, how would we'd go into do this? Well, here is the Amazon trade-ins area. It's basically a portal into what Amazon has for people to trade in their used textbooks or used books for a gift card. So if we select the first book, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, it brings us to the book detail page. And there's interesting data on this page. The first thing, and that it's kind of washed out, draw focus to where the third-party information is. The third-party vendors, they are buying or they are selling new and used copies of this book. And also on this page, we can see over here where if we go with Amazon to trade in our book, we will be given a $77.05 gift card. So isolating these two little areas of interest, we can come up with a basic formula that says if the gift card that we get minus whatever we buy it for is greater than 0, then we win. Else we're going to pass on that deal. So that's a basic concept of trading in to Amazon. Now it's time to get more in depth and analyze the task at large. Now, we're going to understand how we can make the machine do it, because we're in the year 2013, and by no means should we be doing this, combing Amazon site by hand. So, I'm going to have an introduction to our tools, and let's get an introduction to our cohorts. First off, you're going to need your brain, and that is very essential to anything in programming. You just need to think about the task and sometimes step back and reflect on what's actually going on. But within reflection, You also have tools like the Chrome Web Inspector, which lets you get into the meat of the page. This displays the document object model, and it also permits you to test selectors, which is very important to how we're going to access the information that's contained within this page. Another one of our tools that we have available to us is Request. Request is at version 1.2.3, and Kenneth, who has talked at this conference, made this very handy package. It's a simple-to-use HTTP abstraction, and the way we're going to use it is we're going to get the content from Amazon to parse. Next in our tool set is PyQuery, and it's a jQuery-like abstraction of LXML. We're going to use this to traverse and extract the content from the pages that we get from requests. I also throw in Django. It's a full-featured Python web framework if you're not familiar with it, and I use it to query and render the data. I also leverage the ORM to store the information in the database. So let's go back to our entry point. So we're back at the book trade-in page, and let's explore this a little bit. So exploring the interface is where we're going, and we're trying to really find patterns, and we're trying to find information that we can exploit to our advantage. So on the left side of the page, we have the categories of books. We're going to go and click on the first one, which is arts and photography, just to see what it does. As you see, there's a lot of subcategories or subfacets of the category, and we got to notice a reduction of results. Before, there was 64,000 results. If that can be read, it can't. And now we have many subcategories, and there's less results in there. So let's keep going until we go further down the rabbit hole, and we find that there's more subcategories until we can't go anywhere. We're at a dead end, and this is, if we were going to use the categories as a graph, this would be a leaf node. And as we traverse it and get these dead ends, we can push them onto something because this is a place of importance. And we'll use that with the Django ORM. So let's use our brain and find more patterns we can leverage. So again, we go back to the main trading portal, and we're going to check out Cheryl's book right there of Lean In. And we're looking for patterns. We're going to go to this time we're going to go to the used section of the third-party vendors. And the washed out browser bar up there, it actually has some very important information in there. We're going to go to another book, and we're going to see the patterns that are evolving. We're going to go to another book and see that there's still a pattern. And the pattern that is washed out there is the URL pattern. So we essentially have this URL pattern with some change in value, and this value of value interest represents the Amazon product code, which then we can use to pragmatically create a valid URL. So exploring the interface will lead us to awareness of how we can automate things. So that is one example of it, and there's many other examples, but let's get to the heart of this and learn how we can put this into practice. Now, we're going to make some assumptions that we meticulously scanned Amazon because I'd put in those hours, and we're going to finally get to the code. So first, we have a little excerpt from the Django models, and this is our data representation. I looked at what kind of data essentially that we needed to represent these books. We have the title, the product code, authors. We have the most important is the buy, the sell, and if this is profitable. And the profitability is based on a threshold of if we trade it in, is it going to get us money? So to get to this information, I said we have to use requests. Here, I'm injecting some headers to kind of spoof to Amazon that we are actually a legitimate user, that we're not using any kind of, that we're not some kind of machine agent. And now we're going to go to and add the facets to scan. So as we said before, that directed graph that we have, we go to leaf nodes, and we're able to scan down and then push these on to the Django ORM to at a later time go and count the books and be able to retrieve all the books. Then we can index the books. Now, here's how I'm adding my category. Now, you may be saying right now, like, holy moly, this is not Pythonic by any means. And you're right. This is code that I wrote while I was learning Python and how I had a problem that I wanted to solve. And now there is a lot of technical debt in here, but it wasn't production-based code, so I wasn't too worried about it until a couple of days ago when I started to test it to see if it would run, because it's the basis of this, and it didn't. And I'll get to that. So this is where we count the books in the category so that we can intelligently scan and construct the URLs to feed to Amazon. The only ones that needed, since we navigate to this, are the leaf nodes. And after it runs its course, we have exposure through Django, simple access to the data via the admin. But nothing is very easy. So damn it, there's going to be problems. And the first problem was this was way too slow. It was way too slow because I was doing it serially. Well, I was introduced to Celery and RabbitMQ. And with Celery and RabbitMQ, I was able to asynchronously get to a lot of books, a lot of categories extremely fast, which led to another problem. Oops, the data came in way too fast. And at the time, I was using MySQL. Well, I navigated to MongoDB, because MySQL couldn't handle the influx of the data that I was feeding it. And it should be known that I am not an expert by any means in databases. I can get my way around thanks to the internet. So I introduced MongoDB to it, and I errantly went with Django 1.3 fork that was built as Django non-rel. And that right now screams novice to me because it should have been evaluated exactly where I needed to do this. I didn't need to replace all of the models. I just needed to replace that one Amazon trade-in model and shove that into MongoDB. But you live and learn. So one of the things that I did this week when I brought this out was I experienced some Amazon head fakes. And resuscitating an application that's about a year and a half old is going to lead to some problems if you rely on a very fragile document structure. So Amazon had a few ploys in for me. Essentially, I was getting some Service 500 errors, and I went and checked my code, and then I checked it in the browser. So I'm getting 500s in my Python interpreter, but when I throw it into a browser, it's coming up just fine. What I learned was Amazon was rate throttling me, and then they were serving up 500 errors just to throw me off. So over the course of a night, I threw some proxies at it and made an adaptive proxy solution, and was able to defeat some rate throttling from Amazon because now my requests weren't coming straight from the server. They were coming from various different origins. And now, next to used car salesmen, they can be the worst. You have the used book salesman, and this is the reason why our system can't just go in and buy every book that it sees. we have a lot of trickiness that goes on here. It's very small on here, so I'm going to read the description by walking over. So it's lists that it's in good condition, but it has random underlines next to various bolded words, and that there's scratches and tears in the cover. Just by experience, Amazon wouldn't accept any of that. We have other books that don't have a cover at all, and people are rating them as being like new. We also have ones that are, this says this is better to read, okay? This is a brand new book that was separated and stapled by chapter for easy reading in class notes. So I wouldn't call that a book anymore. I'd call that a packet. And of course, Amazon wouldn't accept this for a $114.70 trade-in, as it's up there. So that's the reason we can't go in there and have the machine do it. We have to, there's still a manual process. And there was more problems that have been omitted. Now that we buy the book through their Amazon's one-click sign-in, we have to print a label. And then we have to pack we have to repack the item, we have to ship the item, and then we have to be able to track the inbound and outbound purchases. And that was a whole host of other problems that was solved, but outside the Python ecosystem. That was unfortunately .NET. So succeeding, what does it look like? Well, you see here on this one, $39 for and we can get this book here at a good condition. It has some boilerplate condition comments, $22.37 plus $3.99 shipping. That's going to be a profitable one. Here, $143.98 gift card for something that we're throwing $113 at. Additionally, $60.58 on the Amazon gift card, which is at the top, for $48.18 plus $3.99 shipping and handling. So there's still a lot of deals to be had, and this was found within the last day or so. I was able to construct a dashboard to deals that's in the source. Basically, this uses data tables to expose all this information to the client, and you're able to sort on the columns. And this one is sorted by the net return. So the breakdown. So I was able to, I purchased and processed over $3,085 in books. I redeemed over $2,870.33 in purchases. This wasn't money towards new books. This was just purchases towards like Christmas or other stuff after Christmas. I had a $100 out-of-pocket initial investment where I just bought a gift card. I did this through a 3 to 4 month activity window, which was kind of slow to start up since I started with $100. But as you reel up, you're managing and orchestrating a lot of books. And Christmas was in the middle of it, so I wasn't able to scale this as exponentially as I would have hoped. But I maintained my sanity. During the peak of it, I was maintaining and scraping about 165 or 100.6 or 1.6 million books per day, and keeping up with the third-party trade-in values. So if you want the code, and may the deals be with you, I made it available on GitHub under textbook arbitrage redo. I have some image attribution thanks to the noun project, and I'm going to try to go into a live demo here to mirror the display and show. All right. So here I have just the typical Django admin. Before I had this as Amazon Mongo trade-ins using the MongoDB, so that's been factored out. Now it relies on Postgres. Really fighting with the resolution here. That's great. So anyway, here's the deal: is that so currently, I was able to index earlier this morning and find some other books. $54 on this one. If we go. And the conference Wi-Fi is going to fail me. All right, I'm going to call it quits. So thank you. I kind of sped through my slides. Is there any questions about this?
Would you use this in proxies?
I was able to do some Google queries and use some anonymous proxies. And then fed those into a model that I had that was able to, since they're anonymous proxies, some are good, some are bad, and blacklist the ones that were bad. But no particular service, just freely available proxies that were in Google searches.
Hey, Brandon, make sure you repeat the question.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you said that you found out through the process that some of the books Amazon wouldn't buy back. How many did you have to take a wash on? What percentage of books ended up in your library?
So the question is, during my process, I figured out that Amazon would not buy back some of my books, and how many books did I have to take a wash on? And I could probably count that on 2 hands, but I learned early on, getting burned by the comments, and some of those books that I would purchase for $100, that's putting a lot of risk online for losing out on that, and sometimes I would just pass if it was sketchy. I don't have a hard, firm answer, but I did have some books that were left over. Yeah.
You have to physically deliver this book on both ends, right?
What's that?
You have to take the book,
Oh,
physically handle.
to physically handle this. So the question is that I had to physically handle this book at both times. Yes. So the book would come into my residence, and I got good at sorting and packing and wrapping and bubble wrapping and reusing the packaging. But I was able to receive the book. I printed out the label and was able to slap it on, have the tape gun, tape it on the package, and I would come in where I work. We have a personal mail drop for UPS, and I would physically transport a backpack of books during an average day during November of 2011.
Given the physical work involved, what would you say your hourly rate was?
The question was, given the rate of physical work involved, what would be my hourly rate? I would say it wasn't worth it. That is the reason the code's on GitHub.
Not on the beach doing this.
And that is the reason I'm not on the beach. And you only got gift cards, no taxes on the gift cards, but it was an exhausting experience, and just maintaining many books going in and out was exhausting. Now, I will forewarn you that nowadays I see a lot less deals than I did when in the heyday of this. Again, why it comes out now and not back in 2011. Yes.
Did you ever have any issues with Amazon, like banning your account or taking any actions like that?
The question was, did I have any issues with Amazon banning my account? No. Actually, they give you 1 week when you go into contract to send the book. Well, I would do that instantaneously. I also had a service that kept track of that certain book and knew what price that I would that I would lock that in at. Say it was $50. Say by the time that I had received the book, because they would usually take about a week to sometimes 2 weeks to get the book, they would go up or down. If they went down, you were still locked in. If they went up, I would cancel and then lock in at the new price. Say it was at $60, and then I'd have a week extended from that. But even with the week that Amazon gave you, they were very lenient, and they wouldn't really cancel it until maybe like 3 weeks to a month of not seeing anything. Which brings me to another point. Foreign shippers, if you're getting it from UK or India, that's probably something to pass up on because you may experience some kind of delay.
Two questions. You had mentioned, I know not Python, but .NET, so maybe elaborate what you had automated with that, and also maybe speak to what your thresholds were, or what you thought was, something you saw 10% margin or something. Skip over that.
Okay. So the question was, can I speak to the other technologies that were employed? And .NET I was using because, again, early on in Python, I was very comfortable with .NET. I wanted a desktop application. I was also on a Windows computer. So I had the strength of .NET there that I had a background in. And I was able to create a desktop application that used Watin, W-A-T-I-N, and that is a package for .NET where you're able to kind of make some requests and parse the DOM and do some selectors. Anyway, that desktop application did a service that would log in, authenticate as me. It would go in and then going through my outstanding trade-ins, and it would tell me which ones had been accepted, which ones were still in flux, and then it would correlate that to when I ordered them, so I knew that this shipper hadn't really, I would have some action on it. And that happened very minorly, that I would have to go and actually say, can you please cancel my order or send me the book? I would also use it to print the labels just because it was wasteful. It was printing out 3 labels. I was able to do some image resizing and comfortable in .NET once again to print it out to 1 page and just to make it really optimized. I'm sorry, what was the second part of my margins? And my margins, believe it or not, some books got up to a 400%. That was one of the real extravagant ones you were buying for. But, you hear 400%. Ooh, you're buying it for like $1.50? Well, plus $3.99, and then, multiply it by 4 there, $20 for a trade-in. But average was, I really wouldn't jump unless it really had I spoke in margin, but the net was the one that was really worth it to me. But again, I fall back to if I'm spending $100 and maybe they'll give me $150, I'm not going to go in for $100 and have that risk, because I did lose out on some of those that were completely bad deals. Is there any more questions?
The bad deals, you can still sell it, right?
Yeah, you could still sell it. So you could go on if you wanted to be an Amazon merchant, and you could sell it as acceptable, as correctly graded. There were some that I clearly got that were not good, and I would just return them. But then you have to pay shipping and stuff, so you get into that too about how much you purchase a book for. It's highly a numbers game. Any additional questions? Yes.
What are you going to arbitrage next?
I don't know. Actually, that brings me to a very good point. So whenever I see something that I can exploit, let's say the stock market, I will actually put in some due diligence into seeing how effective that is and how much time that I actually can do something. I actually don't have a lot of time personally to apply to it right now, but we'll see what the next thing is. Yes?
Yeah, I wasn't clear on the answer that you gave to somebody before. This isn't any kind of violation of Amazon's terms of service
Correct. This is not a violation. The question was this a violation of Amazon's terms of service? Well, first off, let me say I'm not a lawyer, but I do not perceive any violation of the terms of service. They were third-party sellers. Amazon themselves, the trade-in goes to another third party. It said within the legal text. So it wasn't Amazon that was actually making the deals. They were actually the facilitator of all this. And the third-party sellers are the ones that set the prices, not Amazon. So they couldn't track it, and Amazon could not track it in their database and mess with the algorithm. Do they do it now with a third-party trade-in value? I don't know. Is that the reason that we don't see a lot of room for arbitrage? I don't know.
You know if Amazon has like local domains like .uk that you could also scrape, that maybe they have different prices in that locale?
So the question was, does Amazon have local domains or international domains like .uk that would have opportunities? That is a very good question. It could possibly exist. The code on GitHub, B. Lorenz. I'm going to add some to the README. I was just prettying everything up. Believe me, taking something that you personally do for yourselves and when you're first learning Python and then trying to get it ready to just release for some people to work with, that is a real eye-opener. So it works. I'm going to add to the README tonight and go for it with UK, with Ireland. Yes.
Just going along with that idea, is there anything you do differently now that 2 years into Python?
The question is, would I do anything differently now, 2 years into Python? And the answer is yes. And actually, I did some stuff differently. The first go around, I said MongoDB. I went to that. I went to Django non-relational, a fork of Django 1.3, and it was really iffy to get it going. I went back to in the most recent release of 1.6 beta 1, and I'm using Postgres right now. I used LXML first, and I didn't use Beautiful Soup or anything, but I was using XPath. I'm not the strongest at XPath. I'm more firm with CSS selectors, and PyQuery came to my radar here and within the last year, so I was able to add that in, and I refactored that. I would make things more Pythonic. I thought it would be disingenuous to try to refactor this to be more Pythonic now, because it is what it is. It got me. It was a means to an end, and it worked. Yes, Eric.
What proxy service did you use?
The question was, what proxy service did I use? I did not use a proxy service. I went to Google and I searched by file type, TXT, and then I searched for 8080. And the results that came back from that, you could eyeball in there and see that there were some IPs and colon with the port and a whole list of them. So what I did about 2 days ago was make a proxy object that would test this, and if it was if requests was coming back not okay, or else it was timing out, then I just threw that proxy out. I had about over 3,000 proxies that I scraped from Google, and a lot of them would filter out immediately, but I had a small handful, and they were good for a while, but that error 500, eventually that would catch up to those proxies too. So Amazon will remove you from their little blacklist for the service 500 after, n number of minutes or hours.
So you were poisoning all these wells.
Yeah, I am poisoning the wells of anonymous proxies from Croatia or Russia. You got me. Yes.
Did you run into any limitations with the request library or with PyQuery that would cause your screen scraping algorithm maybe to not work in certain situations?
The question was, did I meet any errors with requests or PyQuery.
Limitations of those two libraries.
The limitations. Well, for this particular instance, no. Requests, Kenneth, thank that thing. It saved me. I didn't have to work with URL Lib 2. Before I initially got into Python, I was using PyQt, which was it was just slow. It was just slow, but it provided evaluation of the JavaScript stack, and you didn't need this for the Amazon scraping. That's something that Request obviously can't do. It doesn't have a JavaScript engine tied to it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's everything was fantastic. I not with this. Other things needed full JavaScript things that I've done before that needed full JavaScript and analyzation. I moved on to actually a JavaScript solution called Phantom.js. There's actually a Phantom Pi port of it, but that was a no-go and it's been abandoned. I couldn't get that up and going. So if you do something like scrape, I'm sorry to go back to this, like using going and interacting with Google services that heavily evaluate JavaScript, I would go with something like Phantom.js or Zombie.js. Yes. The question is, I look at going outside of the Amazon ecosystem to like Google Shopping or some other place to purchase books, and the answer is no, but that is an excellent opportunity. That was on the roadmap before I just got too busy for the roadmap. Yes?
What sort of volume would you have had to do in order to hire like some people to ship and do all that stuff for you?
What kind of volume? The question is, what kind of volume would I have to do? The answer is, I don't know. There would be times that I would get 20 books a day to my house, and they would come through, they don't come through UPS. They come through the postal. And I had this, God bless her soul, she was probably in her late 50s, early 60s, and she would have to get out of her mail truck, and she would have to carry up all these packages. And she was the nicest lady, and she got a very fine Christmas gift for that. But I didn't meet that threshold. I was hoping my wife, who was a stay-at-home mom, which is that is a job in itself, but I thought that maybe she could pick up the reins on this. That wasn't happening. Any more questions? Well, thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for attending Pi Ohio, and have fun.